The fluorescent lights of San Diego International Airport buzzed overhead as Emily Carson wiped down the counter of her small medical station near Gate 24. At 28 years old, she'd been working as an airport medical responder for only 6 months, and most days felt like an endless parade of upset stomachs and twisted ankles. "Another exciting day in paradise," her coworker Brian muttered, scrolling through his phone. He was 15 years older than Emily and never let her forget it. "Try not to panic if someone gets a paper cut, rookie." Emily bit her tongue. She'd learned that responding to Brian's jabs only made things worse. Instead, she focused on restocking the automated external defibrillator, checking each pad and connection with the same precision she'd once used for very different equipment in very different circumstances. That life felt like a distant dream now, or maybe a nightmare she was trying to forget. "I'm grabbing coffee," Brian announced, standing and stretching. "Think you can handle things for 20 minutes without calling me in a panic?" "I'll do my best," Emily said quietly, not looking up. As Brian sauntered away, Emily allowed herself a moment of frustration. She'd left one kind of disrespect behind only to find another waiting for her in civilian life. At least here, nobody was shooting at her. The afternoon crowd shuffled past her station, business travelers in wrinkled suits, families herding tired children, elderly couples moving slowly hand in hand. Emily watched them all with the observational skills she'd honed in another life, always scanning, always aware. That's when she noticed him. The man was in his early 60s, silver-haired and ramrod straight despite his civilian clothes. He moved with purpose through the terminal, pulling a small carry-on behind him. Something about his bearing caught Emily's attention. The way he held his shoulders, the measured pace of his steps, the quick, assessing glances he gave his surroundings. Military, Emily thought, and not just enlisted, officer, high rank. The man stopped about 30 feet from her station, studying the departures board. Then his hand went to his chest. Just a small gesture, barely noticeable, but Emily saw the grimace that flickered across his face. She stood up, her body moving before her mind fully processed what she was seeing. The man took 2 more steps, then stumbled. His carry-on fell to the ground. He reached out for a nearby column but missed, his knees buckling. Emily was already running. "Sir," she called out, dodging between startled travelers. "Sir, I'm a medical responder." The man collapsed completely just as Emily reached him. His eyes were open but unfocused, his breathing rapid and shallow. His lips were turning gray. "I need help here," Emily shouted to the crowd. "Someone call 911 now." She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands already moving to check his pulse. Weak and irregular. His skin was cool and clammy. All the signs were there. Cardiac event, probably a heart attack. The crowd had formed a circle around them, everyone frozen in that peculiar paralysis that overtakes people during emergencies. Phones came out, but nobody moved to help. "You," Emily pointed to a young man in a college sweatshirt. "Call 911 and tell them we need paramedics immediately. Terminal 2, near Gate 24. Possible cardiac arrest." The young man fumbled for his phone. Emily looked down at the man. His breathing had become even more labored. She needed to act fast. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm Emily. I'm going to help you." His eyes found hers for just a moment. There was fear there, but also something else. Recognition, maybe, as if he understood exactly what was happening to him. Then his eyes rolled back, and his breathing stopped. "No pulse," Emily announced. She positioned her hands on the center of his chest, laced her fingers together, and began compressions. The muscle memory flooded back instantly. How many times had she done this? In dusty compounds, in the backs of armored vehicles, in field hospitals under mortar fire. Her body knew the rhythm without thinking. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted out loud, pressing hard and fast. The man's chest rose and fell with each compression. "Is he going to be okay?" someone in the crowd asked. Emily didn't answer. She couldn't spare the breath. After 30 compressions, she tilted the man's head back, lifted his chin, and gave 2 rescue breaths, then back to compressions. Her arms were already starting to burn, but she didn't slow down. In her mind, she wasn't in an airport anymore. She was back in Afghanistan, working on a wounded Marine while explosions shook the ground. She was in a field hospital in Iraq, fighting to save a soldier's life as blood soaked through her uniform. The fear tried to creep in, the fear that she wouldn't be enough, that she'd fail again like she'd failed before. But Emily pushed it down. This man was still alive because she refused to give up on him. "Come on," she muttered between compressions. "Stay with me. Don't you dare quit on me." A security guard appeared at the edge of the crowd. "Medical's coming, 2 minutes out." 2 minutes might as well be an eternity. Emily kept going. Sweat ran down her face. Her shoulders screamed in protest, but her compression stayed steady, strong, unrelenting. 30 and breathe, 30 and breathe. "Someone get the AED from my station," Emily called out. "The red box on the wall, go." A middle-aged woman broke from the crowd and ran. Emily continued compressions. Her entire world narrowed down to this one task, this one life. The noise of the airport faded away. There was only the rhythm of her hands, the rise and fall of the man's chest, the desperate hope that she could keep him alive long enough. The woman returned with the AED, fumbling with the case. "Open it and turn it on," Emily instructed, not breaking rhythm. "Take out the pads." The woman did as instructed. The AED's automated voice began giving directions. "Remove all clothing from the patient's chest," the machine said. Still doing compressions, Emily nodded to the woman. "Tear open his shirt. Don't worry about the buttons." The woman yanked the man's polo shirt open. Emily briefly paused compressions to let her attach the pads, one on the upper right chest, one on the lower left ribs. "Analyzing heart rhythm," the AED announced. "Do not touch the patient." Emily pulled her hands back, breathing hard. The machine took only seconds. "Shock advised. Stand clear of the patient. Push the flashing button now." Emily made sure no one was touching the man, then pressed the button. The man's body jerked with the shock. Everyone in the crowd gasped. "Continue CPR," the AED instructed. Emily immediately resumed compressions. Her arms felt like lead, but she forced them to keep moving. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. "You can do this," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to the man or herself. "You're not dying on my watch, you hear me? Not today." She lost track of time. It might have been 1 minute or 5. All she knew was the rhythm, the motion, the desperate fight to keep this stranger's heart beating. Then suddenly the man coughed. Emily stopped compressions immediately. The man's eyes fluttered open. He gasped, drawing in a ragged breath on his own. "That's it," Emily said, her voice shaking with relief. "Breathe for me, that's good, you're okay. You're going to be okay." The man's eyes focused on her face. He tried to speak, but only managed a weak whisper. "Don't talk," Emily said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Help is almost here. You just had a cardiac event, but you're breathing now. Your heart's beating. You're going to be fine." The man's hand slowly reached up and grasped hers. His grip was weak, but his eyes were clear now, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Thank you," he managed. "SHH, save your strength." Paramedics rushed up with a gurney and equipment, their arrival announced by the crowd parting. Emily quickly briefed them as they worked. Approximate age, witnessed collapse. CPR performed for roughly 3 minutes. 1 AED shock delivered. Patient regained consciousness approximately 30 seconds ago. The paramedics worked efficiently, placing an oxygen mask over the man's face, starting an IV, loading him onto the gurney. Through it all, the man's eyes stayed on Emily. As they prepared to wheel him away, one of the paramedics paused. "You did good work here, real good. You probably saved his life." Emily nodded, suddenly exhausted. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fatting. The man reached out from the gurney as they started to move him, his hand grasping weakly at the air. The paramedic stopped. "Emily," the man whispered through his oxygen mask. She stepped closer. "Yes." Your hands." His breathing was labored, but he seemed desperate to speak. "The way I know those hands, combat medic, I can always tell." Emily's blood ran cold. She took an involuntary step back. The man's eyes were locked on hers now, and despite his weakened state, there was razor-sharp clarity in them. "Afghanistan or Iraq," he whispered. Emily's throat tightened. "Both," she heard herself say. The faintest smile crossed the man's pale lips. "Thought so, thank you for your service, then and now." Before Emily could respond, the paramedics wheeled him away, disappearing into the corridor that led to the waiting ambulance. Emily stood frozen in place, surrounded by the dispersing crowd. Her heart was pounding, and it had nothing to do with the physical exertion. Nobody here knew. Not Brian, not her supervisor, not anyone at the airport. She'd left that part of her life behind, buried it deep where it couldn't hurt anymore. She was just Emily Carson, rookie medical responder, the girl they underestimated and mocked. But that man had seen through her in seconds, recognized something in her hands, her movements, her training. "Holy hell, rookie." Emily turned to see Brian jogging up, coffee in hand, his eyes wide. "I heard there was a medical emergency. Was that you? Did you actually do something useful for once?" Emily looked at him, still feeling shaken. "A man had a heart attack. I performed CPR until the paramedics arrived." "Well, I'll be damned." Brian looked almost disappointed that she hadn't screwed up. "Guess those training classes paid off after all. Don't let it go to your head, though. It's different when it's real pressure, not just practice dummies." Emily thought about the mortar rounds that had rained down while she'd worked on wounded Marines. She thought about the convoy ambush where she'd performed a field tracheotomy with a penknife. She thought about the 3 soldiers she'd kept alive for 2 hours while pinned down by enemy fire, waiting for evacuation that almost never came. 3 days later, Emily was restocking bandages when her supervisor, Margaret, appeared at the medical station with an unusual expression on her face. "Emily, can I see you in my office for a moment?" Emily's stomach dropped. Had someone complained about her response to the cardiac arrest? Had she done something wrong? Brian smirked from his chair. "Uh-oh, rookie's in trouble." Emily followed Margaret down the corridor to the small administrative office. Margaret closed the door and gestured to a chair. "Am I in trouble?" Emily asked, sitting down. "What? No." Margaret's stern face broke into a smile. "Quite the opposite. I received a call this morning from Scripps Memorial Hospital. The patient you saved on Tuesday, General Marcus Thornton, wanted to pass along his gratitude." Emily's eyes widened. "General, he's a general. Retired Marine Corps, 3 stars. Apparently, he was traveling to visit his daughter when he had a massive heart attack. The doctors said if you hadn't started CPR when you did, he wouldn't have made it. He suffered significant cardiac damage, but he's going to recover fully." Relief washed over Emily. "I'm glad he's okay." "He asked about you specifically, wanted to know your name, your background." Margaret paused, giving Emily a curious look. "He seemed very interested in your medical training, said something about recognizing your technique." Emily's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. "I'm certified in CPR through the airport program." He mentioned something about combat medical training. The silence stretched between them. Emily had never told anyone at the airport about her service. It wasn't relevant, she told herself. That was a different person, a different life. "I was an Army combat medic," Emily finally said. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. Honorable discharge 3 years ago. Margaret's eyebrows rose. Emily, why didn't you put that on your application? That's significant medical experience. Because people treat you differently when they know. Emily's voice was quiet but firm. They either think you're broken or they expect you to be some kind of hero. I just wanted to be normal. To have a normal job where nobody's shooting at me and the biggest emergency is a sprained ankle. Margaret leaned back in her chair, studying Emily with new eyes. That explains a lot. The way you stay so calm, your assessment skills. Brian mentioned you always seem to know what's happening before anyone else does. Brian thinks I'm incompetent. Brian's an idiot who's been coasting for years. I've been wanting to replace him, but finding good people is hard. Margaret smiled. Or at least I thought it was. Turns out I already had one and didn't know it. Emily didn't know what to say to that. General Thornton would like to meet with you, Margaret continued. He's being discharged from the hospital tomorrow and asked if you'd be willing to visit. He said he has something important to discuss with you. I don't understand. I just did my job. You saved his life, Emily. That's more than just doing your job. Margaret pulled out a business card and handed it over. His daughter's contact information. No pressure, but I think he really wants to thank you in person. Emily took the card, staring at the embossed lettering. Okay, I'll call her. Take tomorrow off if you want. Paid. Consider it a thank you from the airport for making us look good. As Emily left the office, she found Brian waiting in the hallway, clearly trying to look like he hadn't been eavesdropping. So what's the story? He asked. The old guy make a complaint about how you cracked his ribs doing CPR. He wanted to say thank you. Brian snorted. Bet he sends you flowers or something, maybe a fruit basket. People always feel super grateful right after, but they forget quick. Emily walked past him without responding. She had the feeling that General Marcus Thornton wasn't the type of man who forgot anything. The next afternoon, Emily stood outside a modest ranch-style house in suburban Escondido, checking the address on her phone one more time. A woman in her mid-30s answered the door almost immediately. You must be Emily. I'm Sarah, General Thornton's daughter. Thank you so much for coming. Sarah's eyes were red-rimmed, but she was smiling. Dad's been talking about you nonstop since he woke up in the hospital. Come in, please. The house was neat and comfortable, with family photos covering nearly every surface. Emily followed Sarah through the living room to a sunroom at the back of the house, where General Thornton sat in a recliner with a blanket over his lap. He looked better than he had on the airport floor, but still pale and tired. Ms. Carson, he said, his voice stronger than it had been 3 days ago. Thank you for coming. Please call me Emily. How are you feeling, sir? Like I got kicked by a mule but alive to complain about it. He gestured to a chair near his. Sit, please. Sarah, could you give us a few minutes? Sarah squeezed her father's shoulder and left, closing the door behind her. General Thornton studied Emily with those sharp eyes she remembered from the airport. I've been doing some research on you, Emily Carson. I hope you don't mind, but I have friends who can access service records. Emily's jaw tightened. Sir, Staff Sergeant Emily Carson, Army Combat Medic, 82nd Airborne Division. 2 Bronze Stars, 1 for Valor. Army Commendation Medal. Combat Medical Badge. 17 confirmed lives saved in combat situations, though the actual number is probably higher. Recommended for a Silver Star after you kept 3 wounded soldiers alive during a 6-hour firefight in Kandahar Province. Emily looked down at her hands. The Silver Star was denied. Someone higher up decided I was just doing my job. I read the report. What you did went far beyond the call of duty. The general leaned forward slightly. I also read the rest of your file, the incident that led to your discharge. Emily's hands clenched into fists. Then you know why I don't talk about my service. I know that you were blamed for something that wasn't your fault. I know that you were made a scapegoat to protect someone else's career. And I know that you left the army with your honor intact, even if others tried to take it from you. Tears burned in Emily's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. With all due respect, General, why are you bringing this up? I saved your life because it's what I'm trained to do. You don't owe me anything. That's where you're wrong. General Thornton's voice was firm. When I was lying on that airport floor, I was aware of more than you might think. I felt your hands on my chest. I recognized your compression rhythm, textbook military medical training, the kind that gets drilled into combat medics until it's second nature. And I heard what you said. Emily frowned. What I said. You said, don't you dare quit on me. Not don't quit. You said on me. The general's eyes were intent. That's what medics say to their wounded. It's personal. Every life is a battle you fight personally. I've worked with enough combat medics to recognize it. I don't understand what you want from me, sir. What's your call sign, Emily? The question hit her like a physical blow. Emily stood up abruptly. I should go. I'm glad you're recovering, General, but… Angel, the general's voice was soft but certain. They called you Angel because no matter how bad things got, you never lost a patient you got your hands on. You were the angel of death's enemy. Emily's legs felt weak. She sat back down heavily. How do you know that? Because 16 years ago, I was a colonel commanding a joint operation in Fallujah. One of my Marines, Corporal Danny Reeves, was hit by an IED, lost both legs and most of his left arm. By all rights, he should have died in that street. The general's voice grew thick with emotion. But an army medic attached to one of our patrols worked on him for 40 minutes under fire. She kept him alive until the medevac arrived. She rode with him in the helicopter, refusing to leave his side even when they took fire during the flight. Emily's hands were shaking now. She remembered. Of course she remembered. She remembered every single one. Danny Reeves survived, the general continued. He's alive today because of that medic. He went on to become a Paralympic athlete, got married, has 2 kids. He's living a full life because someone refused to let him die. I never knew what happened to him, Emily whispered. After they took him to Germany for treatment, I never heard. We never heard about most of them. Well, I'm telling you now, Danny's thriving, and he's not the only one. The general pulled out a folder from beside his chair. After I figured out who you were, I made some calls. Do you want to know how many of the soldiers you saved are still alive, Emily? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face now. I can't. Some of them died. I know some of them died later from infections or complications or… 15 of the 17 are still alive. 15 men and women who wouldn't be here if not for you. The general's own eyes were wet now. You saved my life 3 days ago, but you've been saving lives for years. You're a genuine hero, Emily Carson, no matter what some bureaucrat with a clipboard decided. Then why am I working at an airport medical station? Emily's voice broke. Why am I being treated like an incompetent rookie by people who have never saved a single life? Why did the army take everything from me and then throw me away? Because the system failed you. Because someone needed a scapegoat when that convoy got ambushed and you were convenient. Because it's easier to blame a medic for not saving someone than to admit that command made tactical errors. The general's voice was hard now, edged with anger. I've seen it happen too many times. Good soldiers sacrifice to protect bad officers. Emily wiped her eyes. It doesn't matter anymore. That life is over. I'm just trying to move forward. What if you could do more than move forward? What if you could make a real difference again? What do you mean? General Thornton smiled. I may be retired from active duty, but I still have considerable influence. I sit on the board of Veterans Medical Alliance, a nonprofit that provides medical training and support to veterans transitioning to civilian healthcare careers. We're always looking for people with real combat medical experience to train the next generation. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a chance to use your skills the way they deserve to be used. We have a training facility right here in San Diego. You'd be teaching emergency medicine to other veterans, helping them find meaningful work. The pay is better than what you're making at the airport. The benefits are excellent, and you'd be surrounded by people who understand what you've been through. Emily sat in stunned silence. It was too much, too fast. Just 3 days ago, she'd been the invisible rookie. Now a three-star general was offering her a new career. I need to think about it, she finally said. Of course, take all the time you need. The general handed her the folder. But before you go, I want you to look at these. I had my staff track down some of your patients. They wanted you to have these. With trembling hands, Emily opened the folder. Inside were photographs and letters. Danny Reeves at his wedding, both prosthetic legs visible, grinning at the camera. A letter from a female soldier Emily had treated for shrapnel wounds, now a police officer in Ohio. A photo of a Marine sergeant Emily had pulled from a burning vehicle, standing with his 3 children. Page after page of lives she'd saved, lives she'd never known continued, lives that mattered. By the time she finished reading, Emily was sobbing openly. They all wanted you to know, the general said softly. You weren't just doing your job, Emily. You were their angel, and you still are. Emily looked up at him through her tears. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Because someone once did the same for me many years ago. Someone saw potential in a young lieutenant who'd made mistakes and gave him a second chance. And because when I was lying on that airport floor dying, you didn't hesitate. You didn't think about yourself or your past or your pain. You just fought for my life like it was the most important thing in the world. The general's voice was firm. That's who you are, Emily Carson, and it's time the world recognized it. Emily spent the weekend reading and rereading the letters in the folder General Thornton had given her. Each one felt like a piece of her heart returning, parts of herself she'd locked away after leaving the military. Monday morning, she arrived at the airport with a new sense of purpose. Brian was already at the medical station, feet up on the desk, scrolling through his phone. Well, look who finally showed up, he said. How was your little meeting with your grateful patient? Get a nice fruit basket. Actually, I got a job offer. Emily set her bag down and began her opening duties with the same precision as always. A good one. Brian snorted. Right, doing what? Handing out band-aids at a nursing home. Teaching emergency medicine to veterans. Emily looked at him directly. The Veterans Medical Alliance wants me to join their training staff. You're kidding. Brian's smirk faded slightly. What, you take one CPR class and suddenly you're qualified to teach? Before Emily could respond, Margaret appeared at the station entrance. Emily, could I see you for a moment? Brian, you too. They followed her to the office. Margaret closed the door and turned to face them, her expression serious. I've been reviewing our medical response records for the past 6 months, Margaret began. Emily, you've responded to 47 medical incidents since you started. Brian, you've responded to 12. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Well, I've been letting the rookie get experience. That's good training. Except that of those 12 incidents you responded to, I've received 3 formal complaints about your handling of the situations. 2 patients reported that you seemed annoyed and dismissive. One said you spent more time on your phone than actually helping. Those are exaggerations, Brian protested. People are sensitive. Emily, on the other hand, has received 7 commendations from passengers, and that's not counting General Thornton's call. Margaret looked at Emily. Why didn't you tell me you had extensive medical experience? Because every time I mentioned my background in my previous job searches, people got weird about it, Emily said honestly. They either didn't believe me or they assumed I had PTSD and couldn't handle civilian work. I just wanted a chance to prove myself without my past defining me. Margaret nodded slowly. I understand. But Emily, you're wasted here. General Thornton called me personally yesterday. He told me about his job offer and asked me to tell you that you'd be a fool not to take it. And as much as I hate to lose you, he's right." "Wait, you're firing me?" Emily asked. "I'm encouraging you to accept a position that actually deserves your skills. You've been overqualified from day one. I just didn't realize how much." Margaret turned to Brian. "As for you, you're being reassigned to administrative duties. Your performance as a medical responder has been consistently subpar." Brian's face turned red. This is because of her, because she did one good save and suddenly she's the golden child. This is because you've been coasting for years while drawing a paycheck for work you barely do. Margaret said firmly, "Emily's performance just highlighted how inadequate yours has been." "This is unbelievable," Brian stood up. "She's been here 6 months, 6 months. I've been here for 12 years. And in those 12 years, you've done the bare minimum while treating every new hire with contempt." Margaret's voice was ice cold now. "Clean out your locker. You start in baggage administration next week." Brian stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Margaret turned back to Emily with a softer expression. "I'm sorry you had to endure his attitude for so long. I should have addressed it sooner." "It's okay, I've dealt with worse." "I'm sure you have." Margaret extended her hand. "Congratulations on your new position, Emily. When do you start?" "I haven't accepted yet." "But you're going to, right? Emily, this is a chance to really make a difference. Don't let fear hold you back." Emily thought about the letters in her bag, about Danny Reeves and his family, about all the lives she'd touched without knowing. "Yes," she said, shaking Margaret's hand. "Yes, I'm going to accept." 2 weeks later, Emily stood in front of a classroom at the Veterans Medical Alliance training facility. 20 veterans sat before her, ranging from fresh-faced kids just out of their first enlistment to grizzled older soldiers transitioning after decades of service. All of them were looking to start careers in civilian emergency medicine. "Good morning," Emily began. "My name is Emily Carson. I'm a former Army combat medic with 3 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm here to teach you advanced emergency response, but more importantly, I'm here to teach you how to carry your military medical training into civilian life." A hand went up in the back. A young woman, maybe 23, with the uncertain posture of someone who'd recently left the structure of military life. "Yes, ma'am. How do we explain our military experience without people thinking we're going to freak out or break down? Every interview I've had, they get weird when I mention I was a medic in Syria." Emily smiled sadly. "That's an excellent question, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to be hard sometimes. Some people won't understand. They'll either put you on a pedestal or treat you like you're fragile. But here's what I've learned. The right employers, the ones worth working for, will see your experience for what it really is, proof that you can handle pressure, make life-or-death decisions, and stay calm when everything is falling apart." She walked to the front of her desk and sat on the edge, making herself more approachable. 2 weeks ago, I was working as a medical responder at the airport. My coworker treated me like an incompetent rookie every single day. He had no idea that I'd saved 17 lives under enemy fire, that I'd performed emergency procedures most civilian medics will never encounter, that I'd worked conditions that would have broken him in minutes. Emily paused. "But when a retired Marine general had a heart attack right in front of me, all that training came back. I saved his life. And in doing so, I saved my own life too, in a way." The students were leaning forward now, engaged. That general recognized something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself. He saw the medic I used to be, the one I was trying to bury. And he reminded me that our skills, our experience, our training, they don't disappear just because we take off the uniform. They're part of who we are. Another hand went up, a man in his 40s with gray threading through his hair. "How do we deal with the ones we couldn't save? I still have nightmares about a soldier who bled out while I was working on him. How do I move past that?" Emily took a breath. This was the question she'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure. "You don't move past it," she said quietly. "You move forward with it. That soldier you couldn't save. He's part of your story now. He's part of what drives you to be better, to train harder, to never give up on the next patient. The nightmares might fade over time, or they might not, but you learn to honor those memories by saving the lives you can save." She walked back to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. "Here's what I want you to understand. Every life you save in civilian practice honors every life you tried to save in combat. The skills we learned in war can heal in peace. That's not just poetic, that's practical truth." For the next 2 hours, Emily taught them advanced CPR techniques, trauma response, and mass casualty triage. But she also taught them something more important: how to value themselves, how to recognize their worth, and how to carry their service with pride rather than shame. After class, several students came up to thank her. The young woman who'd asked the first question hung back until the others had left. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say, I was about to give up. I've been applying for EMT positions for 6 months and nobody wants to hire a vet. They all say we're too high risk, too likely to have problems. I was starting to believe them." "Don't," Emily said firmly. "Don't ever let someone else's ignorance define your worth. You served your country with honor. You have skills most people will never possess. The right opportunity will come, and when it does, you'll be ready." The young woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saying that, for being here, for showing us it's possible." After she left, Emily sat alone in the empty classroom for a moment, letting the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. It was a good weight, though, a purposeful one. Her phone buzzed. A text from General Thornton. "Sarah told me your first class was today. How did it go?" Emily smiled and typed back, "It went well. Thank you for this opportunity, General. You gave me my life back." The response came quickly. "You gave me mine first. Fair trade, Angel." That nickname. She'd spent 3 years running from it, trying to be someone smaller, quieter, less significant. But maybe it was time to reclaim it. Maybe it was time to be the person she'd been trained to be. 6 months later, Emily stood at a podium in the San Diego Convention Center, looking out at an audience of 300 veterans, medical professionals, and military advocates. The Veterans Medical Alliance Annual Gala was the organization's biggest fundraising event of the year, and General Thornton had asked her to speak. "When I left the military 3 years ago," Emily began, her voice steady and clear, "I believed my best days were behind me. I believed that the person I'd been, Staff Sergeant Emily Carson, combat medic, call sign Angel, was someone I needed to forget in order to move forward. I was wrong." She clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of herself at the airport medical station. "This was me 6 months ago, working a job I was overqualified for, being treated like I was incompetent, hiding everything I'd accomplished because I was afraid of being judged. I'd let other people's opinions convince me that my service didn't matter, that my skills weren't valuable, that I should be grateful for whatever scraps of opportunity came my way." Next slide, the airport terminal where she'd saved General Thornton. "Then this happened. A man had a heart attack right in front of me, and in that moment I didn't think about my fears or my past or what anyone would think of me. I just acted. I used the training that had been drilled into me through years of service, the muscle memory that had saved lives under enemy fire, and I saved another life that day." Next slide, General Thornton with his daughter and grandchildren. That man was General Marcus Thornton. He recognized something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself. He saw not just what I'd done that day, but what I'd done throughout my service. He saw the value I'd been hiding. Emily paused, making eye contact with different sections of the audience. "In the past 6 months, I've trained over 200 veterans in emergency medicine. I've helped them find positions with fire departments, hospitals, and emergency services across the country. I've watched them go from feeling lost and worthless to recognizing their incredible value. And I've learned something important. Our military service doesn't end when we take off the uniform. The skills we learned, the people we became, the values we internalized, those are ours forever. Next slide. Photos of some of her students in their new positions. These are some of my students. That's Jessica Martinez, former Navy corpsman, now a paramedic with Los Angeles Fire Department. That's Robert Chen, former Army medic, now an ER nurse at Scripps Memorial. That's Maria Santos, former Air Force pararescue, now teaching emergency medicine at UC San Diego. She clicked through several more photos, each one showing a veteran who'd found purpose after service. Every one of them had been told in one way or another that their military experience was a liability, that they were too damaged, too rigid, too traumatized to succeed in civilian health care. They were wrong. Those students are some of the most skilled, dedicated, compassionate medical professionals I've ever worked with. Final slide. The Veterans Medical Alliance logo. The Veterans Medical Alliance has given me the opportunity to prove that our service members are assets, not liabilities, that the training we received and the experiences we endured don't break us. They make us uniquely capable of handling the worst moments of other people's lives with calm, skill, and compassion. Emily gripped the podium, her voice growing stronger. To every veteran in this room who's been told you're not good enough, that your experience doesn't translate, that you should lower your expectations, I'm here to tell you that's a lie. You are exactly good enough. Your experience is invaluable, and you should never, ever lower your expectations of yourself or settle for people who don't recognize your worth. The audience began to applaud, but Emily raised her hand. I have one more thing to say. General Thornton, could you stand, please? The general, seated at a table near the front, stood up looking puzzled. 6 months ago, you were just another patient to me, just another life to save, but you became the catalyst for changing my entire life. You saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You gave me an opportunity when I didn't think I deserved one. And you taught me that sometimes the people we save end up saving us right back. Emily's voice caught with emotion. You reminded me who I was, who I am. Staff Sergeant Emily Carson, combat medic, call sign Angel, and I'm not hiding anymore. The applause was thunderous now. General Thornton had tears streaming down his face. So did many others in the audience. After the gala, as people mingled and networked, Emily found herself surrounded by veterans wanting to share their stories, asking about the training program, seeking advice on career transitions. She spoke with each one, offering encouragement and resources, seeing in their faces the same uncertainty and hope she'd felt 6 months ago. General Thornton approached with a man Emily didn't recognize. Mid-40s, athletic build, kind eyes. Emily, I'd like you to meet someone, the general said. This is Danny Reeves. Emily's breath caught, the Marine from Fallujah, the one she'd saved 16 years ago. Danny, this is the woman who saved my life at the airport, who also happens to be the woman who saved your life in Iraq. Danny's eyes widened. Then he moved forward and pulled Emily into a fierce hug. Angel, he whispered, I've been trying to find you for years. I wanted to say thank you. Emily hugged him back, tears flowing freely now. I never knew what happened to you. I never knew if you made it. I made it because of you. Danny pulled back, his hands on her shoulders. I have a wife, 2 kids, a career I love, a life worth living, all because you refused to let me die in that street. You fought to stay alive, I just helped. No, Danny said firmly. You did more than help. You gave me a future, and I've spent every day trying to be worthy of that gift. More people approached, other veterans Emily had trained, medical professionals who'd heard her speak, potential donors to the alliance. But through it all, Emily kept Danny close, this living reminder of why her skills mattered, why her service counted, why she'd been right to step back into the light. Late that evening, after the gala ended, Emily sat with General Thornton and Danny at a quiet table, the convention center emptying around them. "I have a confession," the general said. "When I asked you to speak tonight, I had an ulterior motive." "Oh." There were 3 people in that audience from the Department of Veterans Affairs. They're developing a new national program to help veterans transition into civilian healthcare careers. They want the Veterans Medical Alliance to be the template, and they want you to help lead the expansion. Emily stared at him. "A national program. Facilities in 10 major cities to start. Training programs, job placement, ongoing support. It could help thousands of veterans find meaningful work, Emily. And they want you to be the director of medical training." That's huge. I don't know if I'm ready for something that big." 6 months ago, you didn't think you were ready to teach a single class," the general pointed out. "Look at you now." Danny nodded. "He's right. You've already changed hundreds of lives. Why not thousands?" Emily looked at these 2 men. One she'd saved weeks ago, one she'd saved years ago, both of whom had given her back something she thought she'd lost forever: her purpose, her identity, her pride. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. "Let's do it. Let's show the world what veterans can really do." The general raised his glass. "To Angel, the woman who saves lives and doesn't even realize she's saving souls." They clinked glasses, and Emily smiled. For the first time in 3 years, she felt whole, not because she'd buried her past, but because she'd finally embraced it. She was Staff Sergeant Emily Carson, combat medic, call sign Angel. And her mission was just beginning. 1 year later, Emily stood at Arlington National Cemetery on a cold November morning. She wasn't here for a funeral, though. She was here for a ceremony. "Staff Sergeant Emily Carson," the Army officer called out, "please step forward." Emily walked to the platform where a small group had gathered: General Thornton, Danny Reeves, several of her former patients, and a handful of Army officials. "Staff Sergeant Carson, 3 years ago you were denied recognition for actions that clearly warranted the Silver Star. Thanks to the testimony of the soldiers you saved and the advocacy of General Marcus Thornton, USMC, retired, that decision has been reviewed and overturned." The officer held up a medal case. "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against the enemy while serving as a combat medic in Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, Staff Sergeant Emily Carson displayed extraordinary heroism by keeping 3 critically wounded soldiers alive during a sustained 6-hour firefight. Despite being wounded herself and under continuous enemy fire, Staff Sergeant Carson refused evacuation and continued treating wounded personnel, directly saving 3 lives and enabling the survival of her entire squad. Her actions exemplify the finest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon herself and the United States Army." The officer pinned the Silver Star to Emily's chest. "You were always a hero, Emily," he said quietly. "We just took too long to recognize it." As the small crowd applauded, Emily looked at the faces gathered there. Lives saved, lives changed, a legacy she'd almost thrown away because she'd believed the people who told her she wasn't enough. General Thornton stepped forward and saluted her. "Thank you for your service, Angel, all of it, past, present, and future." Emily returned the salute, tears streaming down her face. She'd spent 3 years trying to be invisible, trying to be small, trying to convince herself that her best days were behind her. But standing there in Arlington, surrounded by the people whose lives she'd touched, Emily finally understood the truth.